Okay, so moving right along, here we're at part two of our first lesson, and this is where I get into the main topic of the lesson. In the final part, I'll provide an example of what I describe here, and that topic is why and how to be a demanding reader, which, as I said earlier, is also our theme for the course. And we're going to be using two textbooks for this course. One of them is the picture you see here, Mortimer Adler's How to Read a Book, which I think is still, to this day, even though it's an older book, the best book on the market for learning to be a critical reader, someone who really engages with, thinks about, reflects on what they're reading. And Adler, the author here, describes that as being a demanding reader. So one of our goals for this course is to become demanding readers. Why and how do we do that? The other textbook is the collection of Agatha Christie's Hercule Poirot short stories, which will be more what I call our case study or our example. So we'll learn critical reading skills that help us become demanding readers, and then we'll practice those skills on Agatha Christie's works. Now, I firmly believe part of my teaching philosophy is that instructors should be very transparent, which means they make clear to students why they're asking students to do certain things instead of just giving them tasks, or why they've designed a course in a certain way, which is what I'm going to do here. So I'm actually going to pull language from my syllabus into this lecture and explain why I think learning to be a demanding reader is the most effective approach for achieving the goals of English 201, and why detective fiction is the best kind of catalyst to launch us toward achieving those goals. Here are some of those statements from the description of the course on our syllabus. Now, on our syllabus, there's a few paragraphs under the course description. So the first paragraph is the university's official explanation of what the course is. The other paragraphs are my own writing and my voice that explain my specific angle, my specific approach to what the university believes this course should be. So, in other words, I'm not doing anything different from what the university asks, but every instructor has their own teaching philosophy, their own specific approach that they use to work toward those goals. And so I want to really unpack for you, really explain in detail my approach so you understand it, and you can make a decision about whether you agree with it or not. So here are the statements from the course description that are most important to this concept of being a demanding reader. And in the last portion of this lecture, we'll look at some other statements from the course description. But here are the ones that are most important to becoming a demanding reader. The purpose of English 201 is to learn strategies for effective communication in all different types of situations and contexts. So this is my one-sentence summary. If someone said, give me one sentence, just a few seconds, tell me what English 201 is about, this is what I would say. And really, the way you've probably thought of English 201, the way people traditionally think of it before they experience it, is the class that teaches you how to learn to write in college. And that's partly true. But it's partly true because writing in college is only one of the many situations and contexts you'll face as a human person living in this crazy mixed up world. And so I like to kind of broaden that typical understanding farther out to make the class more applicable, to make it more useful to you beyond college. And so here I use the term communication instead of writing to emphasize that a lot of the composing you'll do, because this is a composition course, is not just a written word, but you'll be doing other things. You'll be interviewing for jobs. You'll be making PowerPoint presentations. You might even be designing a meme or something like that. Those are all examples of composition, and they're all examples of communication. And so you will constantly, every day, be in situations where you have to communicate with someone, whether that's convincing your boss for a promotion, convincing your friend where to eat for lunch, composing an assignment for a class like this, whatever situation you face that involves communication, I hope you'll learn some skills in this class that help you have greater success in all of those different situations, not just the college writing ones. So that's my overall description of what English 201 is and what it should do. The next important point here from the syllabus is the relationship between reading and writing is cyclical. This means that becoming a better reader makes you a better writer, and becoming a better writer makes you a better reader. Now, I think this is really important because most people think of this as a writing class, like I said before. But one of the 2 textbooks is called How to Read a Book, and I've talked about the importance of reading all throughout this lecture so far. So many studies show that becoming a better reader makes you a better writer, and becoming a better writer makes you a better reader. There's a lot of studies to back that up. And so if we want to become better writers or better communicators by the end of this course, we have to become better readers. There's also an assumption there that Adler addresses in How to Read a Book, which is that most people think they already know how to read. That's why the title of the book seems almost kind of flippant, right? Because most of us, if we're in a college course, are literate. So we've learned how to read, right? Well, as with any skill, there are all different levels of reading. You can know how to throw a football, but that doesn't mean you're Kyler Murray. And so you know how to read, but there's different levels of reading, just like there are different levels to being a successful athlete or musician or artist, etc. So we're going to work on moving up, if you will, on the levels of reading in this class, because ultimately that practice of growing as a reader will make you a more effective writer, a more effective communicator, to connect with the first statement on this slide. And then now I'm just kind of reiterating what I always said. Reading makes one a better writer, while writing makes one a better reader. And here's an illustration of that. So you can kind of meditate on that for a minute. I find that visuals are often very helpful. So why do we become a demanding reader? I'm going to use some quotations from the portions I asked you to read for this lecture of Adler's How to Read a Book as my evidence to support my argument here. So early on in the book, he says, with nothing but the power of your own mind, you operate on the symbols before you in such a way that you gradually lift yourself from a state of understanding less to one of understanding more. Such elevation, accompanied by the mind working on a book, is highly skilled reading, the kind of reading that book which challenges your understanding deserves. So what Adler's saying here is that if you read for understanding, you're challenging your mind. And if you read the book and start to understand what it means, your mind will actually grow and develop through that process. And so becoming a demanding reader involves reading demanding books, but it helps our minds and we as individuals grow. So one of the things that concepts Adler uses, I think, that helps clarify this further is the difference between reading for information versus reading for understanding. So reading for information is gaining more information. If I want to know more about the Grand Canyon, like some of the facts and details about it, I can pick up a book on the Grand Canyon and read that, and then I'll know more about the Grand Canyon. But when I'm done reading that book, is my mind sharper? Have I grown as an individual? Am I a better person? So reading for understanding means you challenge yourself. A book about the Grand Canyon could be really great and a lot of fun and is worthwhile, and it's not that we shouldn't do that. We should. Some of our time should be spent reading for information, but reading for understanding will be more rewarding in the long run. So we should definitely spend a good chunk, the majority of our reading time, reading for understanding. So reading for understanding will challenge you in different ways. Maybe you don't know what the book is initially saying, so you have to read it multiple times. You have to take notes. You have to challenge yourself. Then eventually you figure it out. Your mind has grown. maybe the message of the book is unsettling or different from what you believed before. So it challenges some of your assumptions or values. You have to think about those things, weigh them out. And you may not change your opinion, or you may, but thinking through them, reflecting on them helps you grow as a person. So this is the difference between reading for information and reading for understanding. And reading for understanding helps us become a demanding reader. And through becoming a demanding reader, our minds can grow, we can grow as people, etc. And those seem like some goals worth pursuing. So I'm going to look at another quote here from Adler as further evidence to support my thesis that we should strive to become demanding readers. The packaging of intellectual positions and views is one of the most active enterprises of some of the best minds of our day. The viewer of television, the listener to the radio, the reader of magazines is presented with a whole complex of elements, all the way from ingenious rhetoric to carefully selected data and statistics, to make it easier for him to make up his own mind with a minimum of difficulty and effort. But the packaging is often done so effectively that the viewer, listener, or reader does not make up his own mind at all. So I think this quote is more relevant today than it was when Adler wrote it, or ever perhaps. We live in a culture where we are just inundated with media. We're on social media, we watch streaming shows, we see ads on those things and everywhere we go, and people are always trying to sell us something or convince us to believe something, but they often do it in a way that presents it as helping us. Like, let me give you some facts that'll help you make this decision. But like Adler says here, they've often carefully packaged that content in a way that only makes you feel like you're making a decision. They're helping you make that decision, but you're still making it yourself. No, in reality, they're indoctrinating you to a certain perspective. And so becoming a demanding reader can help us battle against indoctrination, can help us really criticize, analyze, critique the views that are presented to us in the media, and then we're certainly allowed to still agree with them, but if we reflect on them, we'll be making a more informed decision, and we also have the potential to critique or challenge them. So I'm going to give you an example now of what I just described to further my argument. This is a commercial with the famous football player Cam Newton, and it's a slogan for Gatorade. It's a commercial for Gatorade, but they have a slogan in all the Gatorade ads called "Sweat it to get it." So that's very catchy. You hear it, you remember it, but there's more to it than that. It is, as Adler says, effective intellectual packaging. It's a funny, entertaining commercial. When I played this commercial in my face-to-face classes, students always laugh and enjoy it, but there's more to it. There's a hidden message beneath the surface, and that message, disguised as it is what gets you to buy Gatorade. And so I'll real quickly summarize this commercial for you, and on the next slide I'll unpack kind of my analysis of it to explain how the ad makers have packaged it up in a way. So this guy you can see holding the two Gatorades. He goes into the 7-Eleven or the store, picks a couple Gatorades and a bag of chips and goes up to buy them. And then the man working in the store, the cashier, who's a well-cut guy, it looks like he works out, says, "I can't sell you these." And he keeps saying, "I can't sell you these." And the customer doesn't understand why, and he's using all these rhymes and clever phrases to try to explain why he can't sell them. And one of those phrases is, "Sweat it to get it. Earn some, burn some to earn some," etc. And the guy is complaining. He's like, "Why won't you just sell me these?" And then finally the cashier says, "Well, it's not my policy, it's his." Cam Newton comes in, famous football player. And the guy's all excited. He's like, "Hey, it's Cam Newton." He's all excited. And then Cam Newton knocks the Gatorades out of his hand. So that's the funny part. And we all enjoy watching the commercial. But how is it selling us its product? Well, here we go. So the purpose or the goal of the ad makers is to get people to buy Gatorade. We know that, right? But how are they doing it? So there's an intellectual position here, to use Adler's phrase, which is people who work hard and sweat deserve a nice, cold, sweet Gatorade. This guy who's just sitting in an office or whatever, not working out, not working hard, at least in a physical sense, doesn't deserve Gatorade. It's kind of the idea the ad puts forth. But how do they package that up? Well, Cam Newton represents those who deserve Gatorade. I mean, who wouldn't want to be like Cam Newton, right? He won an NFL MVP. Well, what happens, the effect this then has is all viewers, both those who regularly work out or sweat and those who do not, will want to buy Gatorade. So it's kind of the old idea of people want what they can't have, because no one is actually going to stop you from buying Gatorade, and certainly the company would never do that. But by putting forth an ad where someone does do that, people think, I can't have this. And so psychologically, that makes them want it more. It also makes them feel like they might belong in some kind of elite class of society, such as the one, Cam Newton belongs to. So that means lots of people will go out and buy this Gatorade after watching the commercial. And so the ad makers have achieved their purpose or goal. They were successful. And you can certainly still buy Gatorade, I do, but just taking a minute to think about this ad, to think about the message behind it, to think about the efforts the ad makers put in to construct this ad in a certain way, might make you think twice. And thinking twice about something, whether you still do the thing or not, is a good thing, because you're making a more informed decision. And so we just used the skills of critical reading. We were just demanding readers when we analyzed this ad. And now we're the better for it. Our minds are grown. So you can see in action what Adler's described. Before we transition to the last part of the lecture, I just want to sum up what we went over. And so I've got a few bullet points here on why we should become demanding readers, and these connect directly to the course description. So becoming a demanding reader will make you a better writer and communicator, because remember, reading and writing influence one another. You become better at one, you become better at the other. And one of our goals in this class is to become a better writer, a better communicator, so we need to learn to be a demanding reader to do that. It'll help you interpret, question, and challenge the intellectual positions that many writers effectively cloak in appealing packaging. So this is what we just did with the Cam Newton ad, and hopefully you can kind of apply those skills to other ads, other media you encounter the rest of this week and this weekend. And finally, you'll learn your own strategies for doing this. Now, you might feel a bit like, well, that ad seems like it was manipulating me. I don't want to manipulate people. And that's not what I mean. I'm not talking about manipulating people. I'm talking about persuading people, convincing people. You might have the greatest idea in the world, but if you don't present that idea in the right way, thinking about your audience, it will fall on deaf ears. They won't hear it. They won't be receptive to it. So this class is not just about developing great ideas. It is in part, but it's also about how to figure out how to present those ideas to your audience in an effective way so that you can achieve your purpose or your goal, just as those ad makers achieved their goal with the Gatorade ad. So that was 3 points summarizing what we've talked about on why to become a demanding reader, and that ties into our course description. Here are 3 points on how. So how do we go about becoming a demanding reader? And this tie into our goals for the course, which are also in the syllabus. So you can become a demanding reader, and subsequently, because of that cycle, a better writer by reading challenging texts that force you to flex the muscles of your mind. Hercule Poirot, our detective we're about to study, calls the brain cells the little gray cells. So you can really flex those muscles so that you gain greater understanding. Remember, reading for understanding, and grow as an individual through the process of reading. Become a wiser, more informed, perhaps better person. And so in terms of how to do this, you have to pick things to read that challenge you. Don't just read things that are easy to read. And so I'm hoping Hercule Poirot will do that, but I'm hoping you'll also seek out texts on your own that challenge you more, perhaps, than what you were typically reading before this class. Secondly, you have to actually try to critically analyze and interpret the various messages you encounter. So the next time you see an ad, pause it, take a second, think about it, kind of analyze it the way we did the Cam Newton ad. You have kind of the knowledge base of how to do that now, or the tools or the skills, but you still have to take the action. So this would be one of the steps. And finally, continually working on honing and developing your writing skills. You're going to learn a lot of skills for writing in this class, such as writing multiple drafts, setting aside enough time to write multiple drafts, having others read your writing for you, thinking about your audience as you write, and revising accordingly. So just as all of the reading skills you learn in this class will make you a better writer, all of the writing skills you learn in this class will make you a better reader. And so maybe there's some really challenging text you want to read out there, like The Brothers Karamazov by Fyodor Dostoevsky, which is the greatest novel of all time, but a very challenging one. You might not be able to take on that challenge now, but maybe after becoming a better writer in this class, you can. Maybe you have no interest in reading Russian literature, but there's some really challenging text you have to read for another college class. Becoming a better writer in this class will help you do better at reading that challenging text for science or history or whatever it is. Just like becoming a better reader in here will help you do better on the writing assignments in this class.